Welcome, one and all, to the Madness Method. Do you remember the first time that you did something new? You probably had a pit at the bottom of your stomach. Maybe you had sweaty palms, or maybe you started breathing heavy and your heart started pounding in your chest. And then you did it again and again and again, and then you got good at it. And then you all of a sudden you felt comfortable. And then you get to do that thing that you've probably done a million times before in this new arena. And then all of a sudden, all those feelings come back and you feel like a complete noob all over again. Doubt starts to set in. All of a sudden, you start to think all these different thoughts like, who am I to really even be doing this? Will anybody really listen to me? In this episode, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about that feeling. We're going to talk about the mindset that we have and how we get to overcome all of those things. All right, let's get into today's show. Life is just straight up crazy, but there's a method to the madness of it all. This is a guide to help you navigate through all of it. Welcome to the Madness Method. Hello, all you amazing souls. My name is Juan de Dios Garcia, and I've got a confession to make. I was a dork in high school. I know you can't tell right now just based on the way I look, but I totally was. Man, if they sold self-confidence down the street at the 7-Eleven from where I lived, I totally would have bought it in a heartbeat. All I really wanted to do was fit in, be like everybody else, and just be part of the crowd. So I did what every dork in high school does to not be such a dork. I joined ballroom dancing. In fact, I did it because I really wanted to learn how to talk to girls, and I figured if I could dance with a girl, then certainly I can talk to her. And within a year, I was learning to dance so good, in fact, that I was in my dream scenario, dancing at a salsa club late at night with the girl of my dreams. And there was a moment where everything just all of a sudden slipped away, where her hair became more fragrant. All of a sudden, her hand became more soft and supple. And her eyes, man, when she looked dead right into my eyes, stopped me dead in my tracks. And I knew right then and there that this was the girl that was going to be my wife. And so for over the next 6 years, we developed this romantic partnership as well as a dance partnership. And so in the world of ballroom dancing, when you go and you do all these competitions and such, everybody is a judge in the room, and they judge you on everything. They judge you on your personality, your dancing, your looks, the way you dress, the way you talk. And people had opinions. You see, there was not a lot of people that looked like us, so to speak, in that world at the time. My hair is dark complected. I've got curly hair. So does my wife. We're dark complected. In fact, I'm a foot taller than my wife. So we were not necessarily the image of what was already out there. And people had opinions on that. So they would always tell us, you're too tall for her. She's not the right height for you. You shouldn't be dancing with one another. They would say, you don't look like everybody else out on the dance floor. You need to dress better. You need to look more and blend in like the crowd. And we even had somebody tell us, you should dye your hair blonde just so that you can fit in. Needless to say, what it did was it turned dancing more into not so fun things. For the better part of the first half of my life, I've used one thought to drive me. I'll show you. Now, that was typically paired with the thought, who am I? Because for so long, I was told that I wasn't, that you aren't good enough. You're not good enough to be here. You're not smart enough to do that. You're too skinny. You're the wrong color. You're the wrong shape. You're the wrong size. And so then it shaped me. It shaped in my brain the thought, who am I? Who am I to be at your level, do what you do and have what you have? And then all of a sudden, the syndrome was created within me. The syndrome named after the imposter. And then that's what we're going to be focusing on for today. What better way to begin this new venture in creating these videos than the one that says that I am an imposter? But what is an imposter? What is the imposter syndrome? So, the definition of imposter syndrome is the persistent inability to believe one's own success is deserved. Thank you very much, Mr. Dictionary. Do I deserve to speak to you? Do I deserve to think that I have the knowledge or the know-how in a specific area? Do I believe that I am even slightly successful and then deserve to have this platform? All of these are very valid points. I realize to many of you, you don't know who I am. You may very well be saying the very same thing. Yeah, who are you to speak on this? But for those of you that know me, then you probably know my heart, and you'd most likely say you 100% deserve to teach and speak on this because we've seen it in action. But the syndrome has nothing to do with another. It has everything to do with the self. And so I sit here asking myself the very question, do I deserve to do this? And the answer that I came up with was this: yes and no. Yes, because the knowledge learned and the experience gained on this subject is one that is very, very personal to me. I've lived this in my entire life, and I know the subject like the back of my hand. And no, because I tend to do something that you might know just the same. That I tell myself all the things that I'm not, just as fast as I can think, at the speed of thought. Houston rap group The Ghetto Boys said it best when they sang the song, "My Mind is Playing Tricks on Me." If you're like me, then an imposter is what we call ourselves. And then we ask the questions, who are we? So when I started to think about this subject and then dive deeper into it, I didn't necessarily have to look very far when I decided to look up what the syndrome was. You see, there's a different definition to everything. Imposter syndrome is this persistent inability to believe one's own success is deserved or legitimately achieved as the result of one's own effort or skills. And there it is, the golden nugget that many of us don't necessarily talk or even think about. Now, I'm sure some of you right now are just trying to figure out what just happened, but I'll tell you with this little story, the nugget that you might have just missed. About 10 years ago, there was a movie that came out. It was called Moneyball. It starred Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. And the movie was based on the Oakland A's manager, where during a period of time, he was questioning the very theory of choosing the right team in baseball, challenging the status quo. And he went away from the feeling of scouts having to choose the players and really was gravitating more towards statistics, the statistics sides of how they played the game. Pretty much just like a new way of creating what would eventually change the entire game of baseball. But in the movie, there was a scene where Jonah Hill was trying to convey to Brad Pitt the feelings that we have. Doesn't necessarily match the results that we're creating or that we're going for. And he shared the story of this kid named Jeremy Brown, who was a catcher for the minor league team Visalia Oaks. Brown was a heavier guy whose biggest fear was to really run to second base. At the moment, at bat, he swings at the very first pitch, makes contacts with the ball, and all of a sudden starts running, when at this point he decides to muster up the courage to finally do something that he has never done before: run to second base. When all of a sudden he trips, he falls, and all of his worst fears come true. He crawls back to first base again. But what he didn't realize was at the time, he was so worried about being nervous, about being scared, that he didn't realize that he had hit a home run. All the other players on the team were getting him up, letting him know, dusting him off, saying, "Hey, you hit a home run, you should run the bases." And then he proceeds to run all the bases, dust himself off. And all of a sudden, this exciting ending at first was a fearful beginning, to say the least. So what's the lesson? The lesson has everything to do with the second part of the definition. You see, Jeremy has a great skill set. He can hit the crap out of a baseball. And that skill set gives him the knowledge and the know-how and the power to know that if there is nothing else that he can do in this world, he knows that he can hit the crap out of a ball very well. Yet his fear of falling down, looking like a complete fool running the bases, completely overshadows everything and anything great that he might ever do. And this begins the imposter. The imposter that says, yeah, but. Yeah, I can hit the ball out of the park, but I can't run for squat. Yeah, I'm a great professional dancer, but I can't coach professionals. Yeah, sure, I'm a great bookkeeper, but I'm no accountant. Yeah, I'm an amazing ham on stage. I love speaking to thousands, and I have the know how and the experience and the motivation and the inspiration to motivate and inspire anyone and anybody at any given point in time, but I'm no good when it comes to creating a YouTube video. I dabble with the imposter syndrome in every sense of the word. I feel like despite that my successes, despite my experience, despite my knowledge, I feel like I don't deserve to be on stage. And then this persistent inability for me to believe my own success is deserved has done its job of not allowing me to see the other side of the coin. To ask the second question, the second half of the question, whether or not I deserve the success based on the fact that I believe that I legitimately achieved success as a result of my effort or skill. Wait a minute. Excuse me? As I have a moment to myself, talking to myself, hold up. You really believe that you, Juan, did not deserve the success based on your effort or your skill? Had I read about this a lot sooner, I would have done a complete 180 and not even have an imposter syndrome at all. Now, if you're asking me if I legitimately achieved success as a result of my skill or my effort, 100% I would say yes. In my skills and my experience and my knowledge, I'm 100% confident. I can go toe-to-toe with any of the top professionals and feel confident and good knowing that I can hold my own. But if you ask me to share that knowledge, and then put that experience and knowledge onto a video and then share that video with a bunch of people that I don't even know, well, now that's a different question. So I feel like the imposter. And that gets me to the core of the lesson for today. How do we get out of this imposter syndrome? Now, you and I are just getting to know each other, and surely I believe that this is a lesson that you could use just as much as myself. So why don't we play this all out together? Okay, number one, consider both sides. Let's start with the negative. Now, what we're currently going through right now, what we're feeling has nothing to do with skill, has everything to do with doubts, with fears. Now, rightfully so. After all, we're entering into this new arena. This is the new, outside of our comfort zone. Everything outside of the comfort zone is, after all, uncomfortable. That makes sense. Things that are uncomfortable are foreign, and what's foreign is unknown, and the unknown begets fear. Fear thoughts like, what's going to happen? How are people going to take it? Will they like me? Will they hate me? So many things come rushing to our head. And that's the moment that you and I feel like the imposter, when that starts happening. But our brains are an amazing thing. They can think of the negative in an instant, just like a snap of a finger. So just as quick as it can go to the negative, can it also go to the positive? Well, logic tells us very well, of course it can, albeit we might be a little bit out of practice with it, but possible nonetheless. So it is very possible that our brains could also tell us the good things, that it's going to be amazing, that people are going to love the information that I have to share. People are going to love me. Everyone's gonna want more, and so on. Got it? If we can think of the negative, then we have the ability to also think about the positive. Number two, is it true? A lot of what we go through is typically a mental game. It's why it's important that we focus on the subject a little bit more. Asking questions is a great way for us to think differently than we typically do. And then this question does a great thing in the fact that it takes you away from your emotions and brings it a little bit more to the logical side of things. With this scenario that you created in your head, if you were one that you were feeling quite negative from all of this stuff, then you can ask yourself the very question to get you out of that feeling. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's test it. If my brain created the scenario that when I create a YouTube video, let's just say, people are going to hate it. People are going to make fun of it. People are going to make fun of me. People are not going to like me. I'm going to look like a fool, and on and on and on and on. Then the question that we ask ourselves is this: is it really true? Is it true that people hate something that I haven't even created yet? Is it true that people are making fun of me for something that hasn't even happened yet? Is it true that I already look like a fool when there is nothing to be seen? That's the logical part. The logical part says, no, of course not. It's not true. It's not true because nothing has even happened yet. And everything that I'm creating is all in my head. And although my reality is in my brain, I can logically see that the real reality hasn't even happened yet. So how could something that hasn't even happened yet already be true? I get it. I made everything up in my head, in my mind, even though nothing has happened yet. Number 3, test your skill. Now, you are a very skilled person. We know this because outside of everything that you are uncomfortable in, there lies a skill in there that is very comfortable, something that you are supremely comfortable with, one that if you were to test, you would excel and do great in. You probably know a lot about the skill. Some would even call you an expert. Obviously, since you are here and quite successful to be where you are right now. So, can we say that you are an expert in your field? If I'm asking myself that question, I would say, well, of course I am. I'm very knowledgeable. I know exactly what I'm doing. If someone came to me with a problem right now in my field, I could handle it, and I'm sure you could as well. So, of course. Do people seek your advice, ask you to consult? Is your knowledge and your experience good enough that people want to hear what you have to say? The answer probably is yes. So let's get this straight. If you're an expert, you're knowledgeable, you're experienced, you can solve problems, and people want and ask to hear what you have to say, then what does that make you? It doesn't make you an imposter, I know that. So nothing in that skill that you acquired is an imposter. When we take ourselves through that little bit of logic, it's easy for us to see that skill is not the problem. Reality isn't the problem. The only thing that is the problem is our brain and the fictitious scenario that we created in that brain of ours that creates the imposter that we are. By singling that out, we get to the very core of the issue. We can now do some of the work to correct it. Our confidence and our thoughts are at question here. So let's talk about that. We've given ourselves some simple techniques. Simple techniques to use when we think the thought that we are imposters. Asking the question, is it true? Bringing logic into it to the forefront of our mind by seeing what reality really is and what is made up in the mind. We even have a technique that corrects the idea that we don't know what we're doing when in fact we do know what we're doing and that what we're doing is something that we are quite skilled at. So the only thing left is to take care of that brain and let it know that it's going to be okay. Like the way that you would console a child or pet your dog, it's all going to be fine. So the next time that you are feeling like an imposter, like you don't deserve to be there, remind yourself that there's a whole nother part of that definition that questions your skill, a skill that made you a success, a skill that isn't really up for question because it's the skill that you are amazing at. Hopefully, you got some great tips on how to overcome the mental game that happens whenever this stuff comes up. Giving myself these tools to be at my best really gives me the opportunity to do something more than I typically would have done had I not even learned or practiced these steps at all. A less nervous Juan is one that is confident in his abilities. A less fearful Juan is one that doesn't believe that he's an imposter. And a Juan that doesn't think he's an imposter does videos like these and gives himself the opportunity to do something that he's always wanted to do, and that affects the world around him and the world inside of him. And the Juan that gets to affect his world in a positive, motivational, and inspiring way is a Juan that is happy knowing that he's living the life he's dreamed of. A world where apparently Juan gets to talk about himself in the third person. And that world is a world I truly would love to live in. So there you have it. If you don't know, now you know. This is the method behind the madness that is the imposter syndrome. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Hi, Juan here. I just want to share with you one last thing. Every single video that I'll be making has a hint of you and me in it. We go through life with all of these ups and these downs, wishing that there was a guide to help us along the way. Now, maybe it's just me, but I wish that there was a coach back then that I had, giving me tips that I could use so that I can overcome the obstacles in my brain a lot easier and then get to where I truly belong and desire. My loss is your gain. If this helps one person, scratch that. This is helping one person. It's helping me right now. My feeling and desire to help myself and get myself to that next level. So I'll say this a little bit better. If this helps one more person, then this is worth it. This is what I was meant to do. This is what I'm here for. And then this is what you were meant to listen to right now. You were meant to click on this video and listen to the message and the future messages that are going to be putting out there as a result of this channel. So if this has helped you in any sort of way, please do me a favor, send me a comment below, subscribe to the channel right now, and then share this with a friend. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.